Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions. We're back from Silicon, just over the jet lag, so sorry for the delay of any new podcasts this week. I enjoyed the 15 that we put out from Silicon. So what we've missed out on, we got Rich Goldstein. He's joining me today. We didn't get to chat with him then, so we're back home now, and we're going to have a chat today. We'll be talking about patents. Key thing here, I want to give you a little bit of background. So with Rich, it's a little slightly different because he comes from an engineering background as well as being a patent lawyer. So he understands how both ends of the chains work, and by his own admission, he knows in his world, people can clock up billables, whereas Rich is very more likely to say that's not going to work. So that's going to be a lot more of an advantage for Amazon sellers. Rich, do you want to give a little bit of background on yourself?
Sure. So I've been, in addition to being an electrical engineer, I've been a patent attorney for just about 25 years at this point, and I've obtained around 2,000 patents for my clients. And so I've worked on just about anything you could think of, just about any type of technology. And I've also been running my own practice since I graduated law school. And so essentially, I've been a businessman. I've been a marketer. I've got out of law school, and I started to seek out clients by advertising. I used to advertise in Yellow Pages back when Yellow Pages were a thing, and then when they stopped being a thing because people were on the internet, I got involved in internet marketing. So, patent lawyer, engineer, and also I consider myself a marketer.
Cool. So very much well-rounded in terms of knowing how to attribute to get people in on your business as well. So today we're going to be talking about two different views of patterns, aren't we? We're talking about utility, and what was the other one that you mentioned? And design pattern. So do you want to get underway? Just give a breakdown of what both sides mean, if for the audience that may be not fully aware of the breakdown of the types. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Utility patent is what we conventionally think of when we're thinking of a patent, in that someone has an idea and it's a new concept for a product, or it's an improvement on a product. And so then the utility patent is protecting those functional differences, those structural differences that make the product better, that make it distinct, that make it function in an enhanced way. Design patent, on the other hand, is simply for the appearance of a product. The ornamental appearance is what they say. And so design patents were conventionally, consider them pretty limited in terms of what their scope is and in terms of what their purpose is, because they're really just protecting an appearance. And so people would typically say, and what the conventional wisdom is that utility patents are more valuable because the utility patent tends to protect more of a concept, where design is just an appearance. And people would say, well, if you just change the appearance of a product, it's not going to infringe the design patent, and therefore design patents have questionable value. And that's been the conventional wisdom until Amazon. Now, Amazon has flipped this upside down, because on Amazon, if you have a design patent, and your competitor unimaginatively knocks you off. In other words, they just look for the same product in China, and so it's going to look the same, and they list their version of the product, which it really looks the same. You do an IP complaint with Amazon. You send a copy of your design patent, and you say they're infringing my design patent. Amazon will shut down their listing. So, on the other hand, with a utility patent, it's more difficult to get Amazon to cooperate, because utility patents are even more difficult to interpret. And so the interpretation of a utility patent isn't as simple as just looking at the drawings and saying, well, it looks the same, which is how you interpret a design patent typically. So the utility patent is more about the words. It's a worded definition of what the invention is. And so, I mean, in terms of the way that Amazon looks at things, and in terms of the depth at which Amazon considers things, it just goes over their head. Like, if you're saying that someone is infringing my utility patent and they're faced with interpreting the language in a patent, they just don't readily get on the side of the patent owner as easily as with a design patent when it looks the same.
Makes sense. And do you think a lot of this is what's come to because of the lack of understanding, shall we say, and the grey areas that are involved. Do you think this is why, one, people are using it as a defense mode, and two, they're using it as an attack mode to take other sellers out the game as like a black hat technique as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing, you see, that there is another level with design patent interpretation too, is that so the test for infringement is, does it have a substantially similar appearance to an ordinary observer? So really, do they look the same? And that's the level at which things get interpreted, let's say, by the staff at Amazon. But there's a deeper level to it. There's a caveat to that kind of test for infringement. And that is, it's always subject to what came before. And so, as an example, it's kind of like if your product is a chair and someone else has a design patent for their chair, they may look very similar until you go a bit deeper and you say, well, the reason they look similar is mostly because they both have four legs, they both have a seat back, and they both have armrests. So most of the similarity is based upon things that existed well before that design patent. And so that type of inquiry always has to go into whether you're actually infringing. And so this is where design patents can be used unfairly by an IP owner against someone who's listing a product. In that, yes, they look the same, but the truth is they really look the same because your product actually has more in common with the things that were 50 years old than it does with the design patented issue. But because they're all chairs, they naturally have a similar appearance.
They're dealing with a fraction of a change, barely legible in some cases.
Right, exactly. And that's why you have to look into, well, what existed before. Because there's a fundamental rule about patents in that whatever it's protecting, it can't be the things that existed before the patent. And so again, you have to kind of look a little deeper into it. And in fact, if your listing does get shut down by an IP complaint due to a design patent, really the first course of action I take is to dig deeper, is to not just answer it on the surface like some people do and say, well, no, they're really not that similar. Look, this part is a little bit more curved than the design patent, or that part has a little bit more of a notch in it, or just some other aspect of the appearance. What I always do is dig deeper and look at the patents that came before and use those to show that the features of my client's product are even closer to the old patents than they are to the one that's being used against them. And that can be used successfully to turn around the situation and to get the product reinstated.
So what are the steps for this kind of stuff? Obviously hire a patent lawyer, etc. But what is the protocol that you go through? What are to avoid people who get scare tactics? Like, how can they pick up on something and not panic and deal with that in hand? Obviously they'll go to a lawyer, but what are those pre-steps to reaching out to the lawyer? How to understand, is this a joke? Is this not a joke, but is this a scam basically, where they're just trying to play with you to get you out of the game? How do you identify those and take through those steps?
Well, I would say first thing is to look up the patent. Go to Google Patents, and I'm sure a lot of your audience are aware of Google Patents, but many aren't. Anytime that I'm in an audience of e-commerce Amazon sellers, probably about half of them are aware of this website, half of them aren't. So you just go to patents.google.com, and you can type in a patent number, and it'll show up in a matter of seconds. And first thing to look for is when the application was filed. Because I've been in situations where my client's product was listed years before their application was even filed.
And they do retrospective listings.
If that's the case. Yeah, and if that's the case, it's not possible for them to be infringing.
Because they were there anyway. They've gone back and they're basically, they've been a patent troll, aren't they? So retrospectively doing this to try and clear out parts of the market, but people are already there before even their products existed in some cases.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's an easy winning argument to spot if yours actually came before or well before theirs. And there's certain rules at play, and it depends on the country that you're in and how that works. But generally, if your application or if your product was out in public before theirs, then there's a decent chance that there's an issue that can be exploited in terms of getting it reinstated rather easily. And So that's one thing. But also, when you look it up, there will always be other patents listed that came before. So it will say patent citations. So when you look up this patented issue, it will say patent citations. If you click through the links to those will be other patents that the patent office was considering when deciding whether to grant that person their patent. So if you look at those, there'll always be things that are relatively close to it. And you might see an example from 50 years ago of a product that was really very close to yours. And if that's in an expired patent, in a very old patent, then that goes to show that the design that you have actually is old, and it's not something that they could be claiming is an infringement of their design patent. So those are some tricks. That's a way to begin to do your homework on it before even contacting a patent lawyer.
I'd like to say as well, I've looked at this stuff before. I just hand it over. It's like the rabbit hole. That's why you give it to a professional, because even though you look at when you're looking at the variants on all these, it just becomes blurred into one. You need some experience to really digest and pull them apart and understand the difference between each of the patents that you're talking about, like when you're doing your homework. So for me personally, I've done it. I've looked at it before, and I'm like, this means nothing to me. I glaze over. I might as well be doing reconciliation and accounting, which I despise doing. So I just hand that shit over. That might be your lane, but when I've looked at that stuff, I'm like, I'm not interested in the slightest. Just give it to a professional,
Yeah, totally. And I'd like to think that, one of the things I'm really passionate is about educating entrepreneurs about patents so that they make good decisions, right? And once you learn a few principles, you can better triage the situation. So it's kind of like if there's an accident and someone gets hurt, you do first aid, and then you call an ambulance, you call medical professionals. But I like when Amazon sellers are able to triage the situation. They know what they're looking at, and they can come to me and say, I've got this, my listing was shut down due to this design patent. I'm taking a look at it, and I found a few old patents that look very similar. So what do you think? And so now it's like they've triaged the situation, they've simplified it, and we know what to do. Or some cases they'll know that they're dead in the water and not to take it further. But the point is, it's great when you look into the stuff a little bit and you learn a few things that allow you to triage the situation.
You get a lot. I think one of the problems that you have is that because of the barriers to entry selling on Amazon, like most of our audience are advanced sellers, selling quite a high volume. So they've got cash flow to deal with that. But someone who's just launched their first product, they're quite like novice-y when it comes to this. That's normally where the common mistakes happen. They don't realize about the patents because they haven't pre-looked at that prior to launching the product itself. So obviously money becomes a bit tight for them to pay out lawyers because they don't know either way for it to go,
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I like for them to have some knowledge in hand. That's why I wrote the book.
So let's quickly talk about the book actually while we're on it. So, Consumer Guide to Obtaining a Patent, a practical resource for helping entrepreneurs and innovators protect their ideas. I've not fully had a chance to have a read of it yet. Do you want to give us a rundown of what the contents are and how to get it?
Yeah, so the American Bar Association asked me to write a book explaining how patents work for entrepreneurs and innovators, and that's really what I set out to do. And one of the things that I enjoy doing is just taking something complicated like patents and breaking it down into plain English. And so I set out to write this book, and it's available on Amazon, the ABA Consumer Guide to Obtaining a Patent. It's about a 4-hour read. And if you read it, you'll be in the 99th percentile among other Amazon sellers about how well they understand how patents work.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Also, let's talk about your engineering background as well, and how that kind of the worlds collide there. I alluded to it earlier on. Lawyers, they're in the game, they're going to be doing their billables and stuff. But the good thing about you, because you're inside knowledge and understanding of engineering, you can also advise people when something's not going to work. Do you want to talk to me about that?
Yes. So, and you're saying not going to work in terms of physically unworkable?
So like you're going to look at like once you've looked at a design and layout, being an engineer, you said to me before, like you're able to, interpret that as well. So it makes it easy because lawyers, everyone has their lane, right? But you work in two lanes. You're a patent lawyer, plus you've got an engineering background, which gives you an advantage over, say, other lawyers who are just focused on that side. They might take something on, but are not aware enough that it's going to work or not, whereas you've got that experience.
Yes, that's true. And I'd like to say 3 lanes because in addition to what you just said, it's the third lane being marketing and business. So to me, a lot of times when people are considering getting a patent, they get too deep into the notion of, well, can it be patented? And even, is it physically possible in terms of the engineering aspect you're saying? But to me, the thing that gets lost often is the thing that you're able to patent, is that also marketable? So a lot of times you come into something looking at an overall concept, and you say, this concept, this product, this is a great idea. This is something I want to get out there. But what happens is we do research and we say, well, the concept actually isn't that new. And maybe some of these details do make it distinct. Some of these details do make it patentable. But now the thing that people don't often look at then is those things that make it patentable are those also the things that make it marketable. So if the product had those particular details, would that make people say, I have to have that product? Would that make your competitors say, we need to make the product with those details or it's not worth doing? If that's the case, then you have a patent that's potentially worthwhile. But often people go into it and people go into the patent process with an idea that is technically patentable, but only because it's relying too far on the details that don't really matter to the market. So I like to inject that part in it as well, not just the engineering sense of can it be done physically, but also is it something that the market is going to care about? Is it something that your customers are going to care about? Is it something your competitors are going to care about?
So you get a bird's eye view of everything. You look at the macro there and the independent parts that are all being pieced together. Cool. Exactly. So is there anything you want to add before we go?
I think we've mostly covered it. But in terms of, to recap, between utility patents and design patents. So utility patents are fantastic for protecting a product out there in the world. When it comes to Amazon, design patents tend to be more valuable. So if you're selling multiple platforms, if you have something that you think is going to be in stores and on other platforms in addition to Amazon, you might consider a utility patent. But for Amazon these days, design patents have become a no-brainer because Amazon seems to be deferring to design patent owners. So it pays to be a design patent owner. It's a lot less expensive to file a design patent application than a utility patent application. And so if you have a product that you're about to launch that has a distinctive appearance to it, it pays to do a design patent.
Makes sense. Cool. So what's the best way people can reach you? Is there an email address, website and stuff?
Yeah, well, my firm website is goldsteinpatentlaw.com. I also have a free video course that explains how a lot of this works, which is at patentvideos.com. And of course, there's the book, which you could find on Amazon, the ABA Consumer Guide to Obtaining
And if they need
patent.
to reach out for questions and stuff, they just go straight to the website, to the Contact Us page, yeah?
Yeah,
excellent.
Exactly.
Rich, thanks for joining us. Guys, thank you for joining us. Sorry about the slowness of podcasts out this week, but I've been jet lagged. Business will be returned to normal next week. We'll have 3 podcasts out a week. Rich will bring you back again. If this is your first time, Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you again in the next few days. Take care.